welcome to the introduction of UNIVERSALDOT Foundation. Today, with this presentation, I hope to elaborate what is the mission and vision of UNIVERSALDOT Foundation. We, as a foundation, try to establish a long-term view on society and try to resolve the problems that society is currently facing. Therefore, our vision has a time span of 100 years. We aim to create a better future. The reason for this introduction is because we have seen some possible problems in society that has to be addressed. While addressing these problems, we will propose an alternative solutions. The questions that we try to answer are there problems in the current structures of society? What are those problems? And are those structural problems? Can we make society more productive by creating new structures and destroying the old ones? How to give more freedom to each individual, how to increase their social mobility, and is there something wrong in the approach that we currently use to measure progress, and how can we improve our measurement in the future? As UNIVERSALDOT Foundation, we try to find universal solutions to our existing problems. We also try to solve these problems at the most abstract level, so at the root, rather than propose patches and temporary solutions. So what are structural problems and what are structures? Structures are defined as the way that something is built, arranged, or organized. If you look at the structures of the universe here on the right, we can possibly extract these layers of abstraction. So at the bottom we have the universe. The universe contains our physical reality. Within the physical reality, we have created a structure called government in order to establish societal order. Government is the highest organizational structure, and below it, there are other organizations such as businesses, corporations, non-profit institutions, etc. All these organizations exist within a jurisdiction of a government. At the lowest level of abstraction, in the structure are individuals, people such as you, who participate in different organizations and lives under the jurisdiction of a government. So we may ask, why is the universe organized into these structures? Why are structures necessary? Structures are created in order to create order rather than disorder. So order is established by creating laws or restrictions. For example, the government creates laws that restricts the behavior of organizations and individuals. So to summarize, the universe must create structures around which to organize itself. If there was no structure to anything, everything will become absolute chaos. But once order is established, order tends to lead to corruption. So typically, those who understand best the laws of the structures tend to abuse those laws for their own self-interest. So periodically, all these structures need to be re-examined, and we have to examine the necessity and the need to recreate all these structures again. So the most important questions we can ask is, when do these structures become corrupt? So when does a government become corrupt? When does an organization become corrupt? And when does an individual become corrupt? And it seems that there is only one answer to all these questions, and that is that structures become corrupt when they prioritize their own survival over other structures. So when a government becomes corrupt, when it prioritizes its own survival over the survival of other organizations and individuals. So this is true for every layer of abstraction that we previously shown. So there is a story that one day one big white fish went to swim into water and saw two small fish, and the big fish asked the small fish, "How is the water?" And the small fish answered, "What the hell is water?" So the point of this story is that these fish, the small fish, they don't see the water. They don't understand the structure that they live in. So they're lost in their structures. So we as humans sometimes act as the fish in this picture. So we become lost in the structures that we have created, and we become unaware of them. So we're not aware of the structures in which we live. So society creates structures that will guide its evolution. For example, government and organizations, they formalize their operation through laws and internal structures that initially support their growth, but eventually become obsolete. So if our whole lives is lived within these structures, how would we know if the structures becomes obsolete? Since we humans are like fish in the water, our whole lives are lived within these structures, and we can't imagine living without our water or without our structure. So just as fish forget that they live in water, we can forget that our societal structures have been created by dead people who created these structures to support their growth in their own lifetime and not ours. So what we have to do is we have to come up with a new structure that supports our growth. So these are new times with new challenges, and we must come up with new solutions. So the problem today is that many people have been born into these structures and don't know anything else. So how can society look like without a government or without organizations? What is even worse, we cannot even imagine a future without these structures. So think of this as an exercise of imagination. We must use our imagination to imagine a better future. So our structures have become invisible and we can't see our water. We became lost in our structures. In order to create a better vision for the future, we first must examine our past. So we must first review our history. And here I have a quote of Thomas Jefferson, who said that I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past. But before we dream of a better future, let's see how power evolved throughout history. So if you look 1,000 years into the past, we can see the transitions of power. So 1,000 years in the past, it was the church that had the most power in society. So it was the church and the word of God that led society, basically. Between 1100 and 1300, the office of the Pope was the most extremely powerful figure in society, and church held all temporal power in the world. The church was the major societal and cultural force of that period. But after 1300, there was a broad separation between church and state. So this is the period when power transitions from church to state. This was intensified during the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s. During this period, the words of the Bibles were replaced by the laws of man. So politicians created new rules for society, and therefore government and states gained power over the church. This lasted till about the last century. Since the invention of the TV and media in the past of the past century, media became very powerful and important tool for politicians to grant power during elections. So media became the main propaganda tool to spread information to the people. So basically the people that controlled the media gained power, and it was the media that basically elected these politicians to hold power. So what we're currently seeing in the past 20 years is the transition of power from media to technology. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the Twitter ban of Donald Trump in 2020. So there we have a technology company, Twitter, that single-handedly decided to take power from the most powerful man on earth, the President of the United States. So this begins the transition of power from someone who used media to gain power. So this is when the power of technology begins. So if you can notice, basically there is always a transition of power in history, and power changes hands because power tends to lead to corruption. So when the church became corrupt, it gave power to the state. When the state became corrupt, it gave power to the media. And when the media became corrupt, it gave power to technology. So power and corruption are inversely correlated. Um, so what we can learn from this evolution of power is that we need to create a self-disruptive, decentralized technology. And this is the goal of Universal.Dot Foundation. So the goal of Universal.Dot Foundation is to create a self-disrupting, decentralized technology. Why we believe that this is the future of power? So why self-disruptive? Because we believe the structures that can be disrupted from within, it will become disrupted from outside. And why decentralized? So we believe that the structures that has no center cannot be attacked, and this kind of decentralized structure becomes incorruptible. So in the decentralized future, we want to establish technology that will improve society. And how do we improve society? So what we want to do is we want to increase social mobility. So we want to be able to give the individuals the power to move within the society based on their own talents and skills. We want to increase productive employment because as the wealth of society increases, the more people are involved in productive employment. We want to empower individuals. We want to give them back the power to make decisions for their lives and for their betterhood. And what we want to do is we want to disempower corruption. So we consider society to improve when these conditions are met. And again, to reiterate, our mission is to create new self-disruptive structures through decentralized technology. So we propose a new solution based on decentralized technology that can disrupt the current structures. So in the past, people worked for themselves. They worked in agriculture, farming, at simple jobs. But as society evolves, it moves toward higher complexity. So thus, individuals must organize into organizations to create complex products. So for example, if you want to create a computer, there is no one single person that can create a computer. But if everybody specializes into a single part, then we can produce many computers. So this is also economy of scale. So the problem does not lie in the organization of the process of organization. Organizations are necessary, but organizations become problematic when they fulfilled their original visions and they continue existing in the shadow. So we have to answer a few basic questions. Why do we organize? When do we organize? And when do organizations should stop existing? To give a more concrete example, let's look at a company such as Apple, which is currently the biggest company in the world. So the company was founded by a visionary founder, Steve Jobs, and he single-handedly visualized the future in which he invented several products such as iPhone, iPad, macOS, and many other products that he envisioned and he created into reality. But what happens after the founder is that there is a loss of vision within the company. So the company loses this vision, and then the company becomes focused on its own survival. So it tends to evolve the existing products rather than create new revolutionary products. So it just gives small updates on the existing products rather than creates something new and revolutionary. And that what tends to happen is because let's say Apple has a big network, it tends to exploit that network rather than improve society. So we have to come up with a better way to organize society that will disallow for these problems to happen. Basically, what happens when these conditions are met is that we have a lot of zombie organizations, and zombie organizations are basically organizations that basically have no vision for the future. They're mainly survival oriented. They want to swallow startups. They have a decreased productivity and they want to maintain the status quo. So they don't want to continue improving and growing. What is the solution? So in the next presentation, we will try to explain and elaborate what is the solution that we are developing. So for that, please watch the next presentation. Thank you.